Welcome to the John Campea Podcast, Episode 4 for Thursday, March the 10th, 2016. Hey guys, on today's show we're going to be talking about what else? The new trailer for Captain America Civil War. Speaking of trailers, we're going to talk about that recent one for Game of Thrones. Also, the new musical faux documentary Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. We're going to talk a little bit about Daisy Ridley maybe being in the new Tomb Raider. That and a whole bunch more. So thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Sit back, relax. The John Campea Podcast starts right now. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the John Campea Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I mentioned the other day that this podcast is going to be 3 to 4 times a week, and I might not do a podcast today, but it's Captain America Civil War trailer day. Of course we're doing a podcast today, and as it turns out, you know, I thought I'd end up doing a podcast today just because of the Captain America Civil War trailer, and we'll get to that in just a second. But it turns out there's actually a lot of cool, juicy things going on out there. We're going to get to all that stuff in just a second. Hey, just want to remind you, if you guys listen to this on podcast, make sure you head on over to iTunes. Even if you don't use iTunes per se, open up iTunes, subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, and make sure you leave a comment and rate the podcast there. That'd be very helpful. Also, I just want to give a quick plug, of course, to my novel, The Pride, which is available on Amazon now. I'll include a link in, if I can remember, I'll include a link in the description notes below. So make sure you head on over and grab that. Tons of stuff to talk about. As I mentioned off the top, we're going to talk a little bit of Game of Thrones. We're going to talk a little bit of, maybe Daisy Ridley in the new Lara Croft movie. We got a whole bunch of different stuff, but we got to start. Let's not bury the lead. Let's start with the Captain America Civil War trailer. You know, it's really funny because I was waiting to start today's podcast until that trailer dropped, and it dropped at 9 a.m. And about 8:58, I actually ended up started texting the reps over at Disney saying, hey, look, this will be completely off the record. I won't say it to anybody, but can you let some of us know what time this trailer is going to drop? Because I think a lot of us are holding off on our productions until this trailer drops. And literally 2 minutes later, the trailer drops. And oh my heavens, it was worth the wait, ladies and gentlemen. It was worth the wait. What a spectacular trailer. You know, all the talk about comic book superhero marketing campaigns has gone to Deadpool, rightfully so. Deadpool, I still contend, the single greatest marketing campaign for a movie ever. There's never been a better marketing campaign so perfectly tailored to the movie that it was. And that is still true. And the marketing campaign for Captain America Civil War is not as good as Deadpool. No film's marketing campaign ever has been. But I got to tell you, this marketing campaign, and we'll get to today's trailer in particular in a second, but I just got to say that the marketing campaign for this movie has been really solid all the way through, from the first teaser right up to this trailer today. This might be the best trailer they've put out yet. Now, I know it's everybody's natural reaction to say that the newest thing is the best thing ever. And yes, everybody's geekgasming over the fact that Spider-Man finally shows up in a little 2-second shot right at the end of the trailer. But let's not forget how good, and today's trailer is awesome. And I'm going to get into how awesome today's trailer is in just a second. But let's not lose perspective here. Let's not lose sight of just how good that last trailer was too. That last trailer that gave us that insane, iconic line, I'm sorry, Tony, he's my friend. So was I. I mean, that was the single best moment in any of the Captain America Civil War trailers so far. I think even that was a better moment than Spider-Man showing up today. But that does not negate, although, you know, there's still an argument. I got to watch this trailer about 20 more times before I decide if I think this trailer is better or if the last trailer was better. I think we can all agree that the last trailer and this trailer and the first trailer are all great trailers. They're all great trailers. So let's go through some of the talking points of this new Captain America Civil War trailer. First of all, we see General Thunderbolt Ross kind of having a lunch conference meeting, if you will, with the new team of Avengers under Captain America. And he's kind of laying out his case to them. Like, all this destruction that has happened under the Avengers' watch. And he said, and General Thunderbolt Ross is there to make a case to Captain America clearly. Hey, it's time to have some civic oversight. It's time for you to have some government oversight over what you're doing. And that really is the crux of Civil War. Now, in the comic book Civil War, the big crux was the Hero Registration Act. But they've thrown that out the window for this movie. The core of this is to bring the Avengers under government control. And of course, what we already understand Captain America's past, right? This is a great point of conflict because we just had Captain America Winter Soldier. And that basically one of the underlying threads of that entire movie of Winter Soldier was Steve becoming disillusioned with government oversight. He's a guy who's always put his faith and belief in the red, white, and blue and the government and Uncle Sam. And then what happens in Winter Soldier is he finds out he's being used as a tool. And his friends are dying, and his government, this thing he's standing for, is involved in a lot of shady stuff, the kind of stuff that he stands up against. And so they leverage that understanding from Winter Soldier, and they bring that over into this trailer for Civil War. And there's that great line, and I can't remember the exact line, but basically it's Cap talking to Tony in clearly an official room of some size. And, Steve Rogers says to him, hey, I can't turn my blind eye if I see something going south. Because what they don't show is saying, but we know what's going through Captain America's head at that point is because I just saw it go south and I was blind to it. And I saw what happened when I just blindly followed what the government wanted me to do, and terrible, terrible things happened, and I am not going to let that happen again. Now, we don't see Captain Rogers saying that, but we know, because we've seen Civil War, we've seen Winter Soldier, that that's exactly what's going through his head, and he materializes that by saying, I can't turn a blind eye if I see things going south. And, I'm responsible for doing the right thing. And now we've got Tony, who's always been the maverick, always been the rebel, always, everybody said, hey, don't do this Ultron project, and he does the Ultron project. They say, hey, don't do this, and he goes ahead and does that. And he's always been the maverick. Tony's always been the guy, Iron Man's always been the guy to go against what he is supposed to do, to go against what is expected of him. But we see now kind of a flip, because now we've got Captain America, who prior to Winter Soldier has been fight the good fight, red, white, and blue, follow the chain of command, all that kind of stuff. And we've had Tony, who's been, F the system, buck the system, do what I want to do. They've kind of now completely changed roles because of the experiences that we've seen them have in the previous Marvel films. And herein lies some of the brilliance of the storytelling of Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers and this Marvel creative team. We are seeing now in these trailers the transformative nature of these extreme experiences that these characters have had. This Tony Stark is not the same guy that went into the cave in the first Iron Man movie. This Steve Rogers is not the same guy who tricked his way to get into military boot camp, trying to subvert the system and fake his papers and everything so he can get into the military until, the doctor came along and found him and believed him and wanted to make him the subject of the super soldier serum. These aren't the same guys anymore. We have seen them change and evolve, and that is one of the brilliant things of this Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now we are seeing, up until this point, the summation of that transformation, of those transformative experiences. Because now we got Steve Rogers, Captain America, Mr. Red, White, and Blue, saying, I cannot simply follow the government. I can't, because I've seen what happens when I do bad things happen. And now we've got Tony Stark saying we can't just go off on our own and do our own things because of my personal mistakes. I've seen what happens when I don't have oversight. Tony is now saying, I've seen what happens when I don't follow the rules. Bad things have happened because I've been really maverick. I've been really running on my own and sticking up my middle finger to the government and authority. It's time for me to come in line. And so it's time for all of us to come in line. You can totally see where both Captain America and where Tony are coming from. They've done such a good job in these trailers in laying out that case. And I think starting off this trailer with Thunderbolt Ross laying out that case, what the beginning of that trailer really was not explaining to us General Thunderbolt Ross's position. The beginning of this trailer is not explaining the government's position. What that opening part of this trailer is, with General Thunderbolt Ross talking to Captain America, showing him all these video clips, what that really was Marvel explaining to us Tony's position. That was really, all of that was to explain to us Tony Stark's position, to explain to us Iron Man's position. And they did it within another context, the meeting of Thunderbolt Ross and the Avengers in the boardroom. It's a beautiful treatment. It is a beautiful device to use to communicate information to the audience without it having to be Tony standing side by side with Captain America explaining himself didactically. They were able to show us through another medium, and that was brilliant. And from that point on, the trailer is all about the conflict. Like, we get it. They set it up. Captain, you no longer can act like this. And Captain America saying, I can't just turn a blind eye when I see things going south. I can't remember the exact wording he uses, but it's something like that. You get the gist. They set that up, and then the entire rest of the trailer is about the conflict. And we seem to spend a lot of time. Now, I don't know if that one shot where you can hear it in Tony's breathing, he's pretty beaten, but he holds up his cannon in his hand. He says, last chance, Cap, stay down. And you see Cap bleeding and he's breathing heavy. He's got his fists up saying, I can do this all day. I don't know if that's the same fight or not that we've seen in the other trailers where Cap and Bucky are ganging up on Captain America, or ganging up on Iron Man, and they're teaming up on him and beating the hell out of him. So I don't know if that's the same fight, and at some point Iron Man has taken Bucky out, or at least incapacitated Bucky, and now it's just Iron Man, Captain America. Or I don't know if this is another fight. I got a feeling this Captain America Civil War is going to be a little bit like Batman versus Superman. You know, we've already seen in the trailers Batman and Superman fighting where Batman is wearing two separate sets of Batman outfits. So we know that in Batman versus Superman, there are going to be multiple confrontations between Batman and Superman. I have a feeling, even though that shot of him saying, stay down, Cap, that might be from the same fight with Captain America and Bucky that he had. But I have a feeling that this movie is going to give us multiple one-on-one encounters, one-on-one fights between Cap and Iron Man. Now, we already saw that they have that big group fight in the alley where Spider-Man appears. And by the way, you see Rhodey in that fight. So you know that Rhodey getting shot out of the sky and dying? Maybe he dies? I mean, I don't know. I always thought that them showing us that stuff in the trailer of Rhodey laying in the field and Tony holding him in his arms, I thought that was just a red herring, like a little bit of a misdirect. I thought, Rhodey's fine. I'm starting to think maybe Rhodey's dead. And I think, and some of you might be saying, well, John, why would they be showing us that in the trailer? Isn't that kind of a spoiler? No, because remember, the trailer is supposed to be communicating what's going on. I have a feeling that fight, that alley fight, happens before the midway point of the movie. And if the trailers want us to really get and understand why Tony feels so much conviction about this situation, maybe the death of Rhodey at the hand of Bucky, maybe? I mean, this is a lot of speculation, obviously. But that could be a very effective thing that they're using in the trailer, and I wouldn't consider that a spoiler. I just think it's rather interesting. But I do believe we're going to get multiple conflicts outside of that back alley brawl between the Cap side and the Iron Man side. I believe we're going to get multiple conflicts between Captain America and Iron Man. So that's pretty cool. Let's move on. We've seen in previous trailers that scene of Black Panther running and Captain America chasing him. And I remember thinking at the time, that's really cool. But the odd thing is, they're after Captain America. Why would, number one, why would Black Panther be running away from Captain America? And number two, why would Captain America be chasing down as if he's going to arrest the Black Panther? I mean, it's the other way around. The government's after Captain America, right? Isn't that what's going on? So I always thought that's strange. But this trailer clarifies that, because it's Captain America chasing Black Panther, who is chasing Winter Soldier. So what that really is, that's not Black Panther running from Captain America. That is Black Panther chasing down Bucky. And Captain America is in hot pursuit of that, probably trying to stop Black Panther from getting Bucky. Because as we've seen, I think Bucky is kind of a linchpin of this whole movie. Like, he's going to be one of the spark points. Besides the Accord, I think Bucky himself is going to be one of the big spark points in the conflict and stuff like that moving forward. So clearly they're after him. Maybe this is after Bucky shoots down Rhodey. I mean, and once again, I'm just speculating that it's Bucky who shot down Rhodey. That in the trailer, it looks like Bucky raises his gun, fires, and Rhodey gets shot out of the sky. But that could just be some tricky editing in the trailer. That may not actually be what happens in the movie. So, because we see that happen all the time. But it would be interesting, and it would make sense. Because if Bucky shoots down Rhodey, then all bets are off. And that would explain why Captain America is defending Bucky, but Iron Man is hell-bent on getting Bucky. And hence, leading up to that scene, I'm sorry, Tony, he's my friend. So was I. It would make sense, right? Now, there's a lot of other possible explanations for that, too. But on its own, that would make sense. All right, one of my other favorite shots in this trailer, and there's a lot of really cool shots, but one of my favorite shots in this trailer is Scarlet Witch kind of handing Vision's ass to him, right? Like, she's totally crushing Vision, which is pretty cool. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the comic book, you know that at points in the comic book, Scarlet Witch and Vision kind of bump the grindy nasties, right? Like, they get filthy. They're romantically involved. So I think in Ultron, you remember there was that one little glance they had between Vision and Scarlet Witch. And that was kind of a wink and a nod to them. I think it's really cool that it's Scarlet Witch that's kind of incapacitating Vision in that shot. Because a lot of people have been wondering, man, Vision, like with Thor not there and with Hulk not there, Vision is arguably the most powerful dude out of anybody on either side of the Civil War. Like, arguably Vision is the most powerful guy out of anybody on Captain America's team or anybody on Iron Man's team. So probably a lot, and I've heard a lot of people, especially in the comic book circles, be going, man, so how are they gonna, isn't whatever team Vision on just wins? But then they show us in the trailer. It's like Marvel was listening to people saying that. It's like, wait a minute, there's a little question out here. It's like, how can this be a fight? Like, isn't it pretty much whichever team Vision decides to be on? Isn't that the team that's going to win? So what does Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers do? They slip into the trailer a quick 1-second shot of us seeing Scarlet Witch owning Vision. And it's perfect because it couldn't be anybody else other than Scarlet Witch. Like, Hawkeye isn't going to own Vision, you know? Maybe Ant-Man could if he did what he did to Falcon in Ant-Man, where he actually gets inside of his body and starts screwing up his circuitry and all that kind of stuff. That's, I guess, possible, but unlikely. You know what I mean? Especially considering how inexperienced Ant-Man is at this point. So that was a really cool shot. Speaking of Ant-Man, him riding the arrow, that looked great. That was really cool. I was kind of hoping to hear a line or two from him, but I understand why they didn't. There's so many characters in this trailer that you got to keep the focus on the main story. And I think, I mean, who knows? Maybe Marvel had learned a lesson from that second Batman v Superman trailer which also, Batman v Superman, by the way, has also had a magnificent marketing campaign. The only flub they had was that second, which was actually the third, but that trailer where they show us Doomsday and stuff like that and them teaming up, that was their one misstep. Besides that, it's been a great marketing campaign. And I have a feeling maybe, let me back it up a step. I think that was Batman versus Superman's one flub. And I think the people at Warner Brothers know that that was their flub, because everything that has come out, TV spots, trailers, all that kind of stuff, everything that has come out since that trailer has been completely focused on the main story, which is Batman v Superman, and everybody's been loving those trailers. And I have a feeling that maybe Marvel has learned a lesson from that one mistake that Warner Brothers made. And they're like, yeah, we could give Ant-Man lines, and we could give Vision lines, and we could give Black Panther lines, and we could give all these great characters, all these characters who are worthy of having their own films. Many of them do have their own films. We could do that, but let's keep the focus of these trailers on the main story, which is the Civil War, which is ultimately the conflict between Cap and his ideology and Tony and his ideology. And thus, I understand why guys like Ant-Man don't get any lines, and that's pretty cool. And that brings us to what people would call in the porn industry, the money shot. At least what they intended to be the money shot. And that is, of course, we're in that early fight in the back alley. And look, one of the reasons I think this fight in this parking lot, for better terms, is early in the movie is because everybody still seems to be kind of in a good mood. Like Tony's like, okay, I've had enough underoos. Like he's still kind of jovial. And we told you about this before, but at the D23 event a number of months ago, that Disney showed us a bunch of Captain America, at least a bunch of promo material for Captain America Civil War. And in that fight, because Black Widow and Hawkeye are on opposite sides, and they're fighting in that parking lot scene. But whilst they're fighting, they're having like a conversation. It's like, we're still friends, right? Yeah, dinner on Saturday? Yeah, and they're still like, it was very lighthearted and jovial still at that point. So that's another reason why I think that fight happens early in the movie, very early. Like before the death of Rhodey. Again, I don't know that Rhodey dies. I'm just speculating based on what they're showing us in the trailer. But this fight happens before, as they would say in Bad Boys, the shit gets real. And once I think Rhodey dies, or at least is shot down, whatever, that is when this becomes very, very real. But at any point, getting back to the money shot, they're in the parking lot. Tony says, all right, I've had enough of this underoos. And then you see the web come down and grab Captain America's shield. And hey, guys. And that's the money shot. That's the one that a lot of people have been waiting for. Does a couple of things. I got to tell you right up front. Other than the fact that we finally see Spider-Man, which is great. We've been waiting for this. Other than the fact that we finally see Spider-Man, which is awesome. It's great to see a shot of Spider-Man in there. That's great. And I think even though there are a lot of people out there who do not follow the movie blogs, who do not listen to the movie podcasts, who do not watch the movie shows, who don't really follow closely, I think when this commercial goes out, because there's going to be commercials now that's going to have that shot of Spider-Man in there. I think that's going to be the first bell to a lot of average filmgoers out there who probably still don't even know that Spider-Man is going to show up in this movie. And I think that's going to cause a lot of very, very positive waves for Marvel. But let me be honest. I wasn't all that thrilled. Yes. It's awesome that Spider-Man showed up, and just Spider-Man showing up is awesome in and of itself. Yes, I'm not disputing that at all. I'm on board. I'm with you on that. I agree. But if you're going to give Spider-Man a 3 to 4 second shot, I thought they could have given him a better 3 to 4 second shot. I don't know. It felt inconsequential because that fight in that parking lot feels inconsequential because it's before things really get serious. It's before things get nasty. And I got to say, the look of Spider-Man felt very glossy and plastic to me. Now, maybe that's just the way it comes across on a computer screen over YouTube. And maybe if you're actually sitting in the full theatrical experience and seeing on the big screen, maybe it'll look a little bit different and look a little bit better. I just got to say that I think that was a live action guy in the Spider-Man costume. And yet it felt and looked animated. Like, I think it was live action. I don't think that was an animated shot. But it felt and looked animated, looked glossy and plasticky, and the Spider-Man costume, I don't know. It didn't work for me at this point. I mean, who cares? That's not what's important, right? The look of Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Future Past didn't work for me or for any of us either. And look how awesome the character was anyway, right? So it doesn't matter that, who cares if, even if I'm right, and there's a very big possibility here that I'm wrong, that once we sit down in the theater and see Spider-Man on the screen, that costume will not look plasticky and shiny on the big screen, okay? I think there's a very good possibility that's the case. But even if it does, who cares? We've seen many times that we don't like a costume on somebody, but that somebody still ends up being an awesome character. And I think Spider-Man will be an awesome character. I'm still of the belief, though, that he doesn't have a big role in this movie. I think he has a significant role, much like Luke Skywalker has a significant role in Star Wars The Force Awakens, but he's ultimately not in the movie that much. Now, I do believe that Spider-Man is going to be in more of Captain America Civil War than Luke Skywalker was in The Force Awakens, significantly more, but I still think it's going to be a objectively small role. I think he's not going to be in the movie all that much. And I think the fact that we're now in trailer 3, and we just finally got our first, 4-second look at him, I think that kind of confirms the fact that he's not going to have a large role. Important, maybe an important role. But I don't think, because look, we've seen more Ant-Man in these trailers than we have Spider-Man. And so I'm still believe that we're not going to see an awful lot of Spider-Man in this trailer, but still, overall, this was a dynamic, badass, wonderful trailer that has done nothing but do what trailers are supposed to do, which is to get us, the audience, more excited, more enthusiastic, and increase our anticipation of that movie. And it is mission accomplished for Captain America Civil War and this third trailer. It's great. It's wonderful. I'm still not sure. I might, like I said, after I watch this trailer 20 more times, I might think it's the best trailer we've had for Captain America Civil War so far. I'm not quite ready to say that yet, because lest we forget just how good that last Captain America Civil War trailer was. They're both awesome. But I will say this. What I said earlier is true. I do believe no matter how good I end up thinking this trailer is, and this trailer is fantastic, I still think the best moment of any Captain America Civil War trailer comes from the last trailer, which was, of course, the "I'm sorry, Tony is my friend, so was I" line. That to me is still clearly the money shot, if you will, the true moment of all the Captain America Civil War stuff. So, hey guys, I want to know, what did you think of the Captain America Civil War stuff? What are some of the little Easter eggs you thought? What do you think are some of the little hints they gave us in this trailer that maybe we're kind of glossing over? Jump into whatever comment section you're on, jump into iTunes, or jump onto my Facebook, or tweet me, or whatever, or on the YouTube video, and leave your thoughts and comments. I want to know what you guys thought of that. All right, I've got to fly through a few things here because I got a meeting in like a half hour, and I still have like 4 other topics and a bunch of Twitter questions to take from you guys. So we're going to go on this. Hey, one of the things I forgot to mention on yesterday's podcast was that new Game of Thrones trailer that came out for the next season. Holy smokes. It's a day for good trailers until we get to Popstar, but we'll get to that in a second. It's a day for good trailers, ladies and gentlemen, because I was not a big fan of last season of Game of Thrones. I thought the last season of Game of Thrones, while there were certainly a couple of spectacular moments, as a whole, I felt the whole season kind of dragged. And I think they know that. And I think they're going to come out swinging. I think this season of Game of Thrones is going to be the best season yet. I can't, I haven't seen any episodes yet. I'm not one of these TV media people where I get advanced copies of the show. So I haven't seen it. So, I mean, I don't objectively know. I can't say for a fact that it's going to be great, but I just feel it in my bones. I think this is going to be the best season yet. And this trailer was certainly spectacular. Look, a lot of really cool things. When they start off with the death of Jon Snow, we see Jaime Lannister going back home, and him and his sister, like a lot of vengeance in Jaime's face, saying, we're going to take back everything and more from them. Like he is on a mission. You have pissed off the wrong dude. So we see that. Speaking of his sister, I'm using the term money shot a lot, but obviously the money shot of this trailer is when the sparrows show up, right? The sparrows show up and say, have your man stand aside, or else there will be violence. Big mistake, dude, because her man is the resurrected Frankenstein hacked together, more monstrous, the Mountain. And the line, this is the line of the trailer, man, is when Cersei, when she goes, I choose violence. What a spectacular line. What a great line. And it just kind of made me giggle and shake in my seat. And look, I'm not the biggest Game of Thrones fan in the world. I watch all the seasons. I enjoy Game of Thrones. It's a good show. I like it. I'm not like a super Game of Thrones nerd. I'm not. But I was grinning and kind of pumping my fists up and down when she goes, I choose violence. Absolutely a badass line for a badass trailer. Look, we see a whole bunch of other things. We see the Ramsays in there. We see like the Red Witch like having a crisis of faith, which was really awesome. Obviously, we got some stuff going on with Khaleesi, and probably a lot of the season is going to be about them trying to track her down, about Jorah and Dario trying to track her down and find her. I'm sure that's going to be a big thing. The conflict between the royalty and the sparrows is obviously going to continue. Look, I haven't read the books, but I got a feeling something very, very bad is going to happen to the High Sparrow this season. Oh, my goodness, I believe something very, very bad is going to happen to the High Sparrow. And maybe there are some of you guys out there who've read the books that are going, actually, John, no, there's not. Maybe that's true, but I got a feeling something very, very bad. I think we're going to see Sansa have a bigger role this season. Obviously, we're going to get more into the dragons, but and then there was that one shot where it looked like Ned Stark. And if it is Ned Stark, it's like, oh, did he come back from the dead? No, I don't think so. This is probably a flashback where we get more into the history of Jon Snow, where I think we're going to find out that Jon Snow, the true parentage of Jon Snow, where we're going to find that he's actually Targaryen, and that's going to explain a lot of what's going on. And obviously, we haven't seen the last of Jon Snow. So that's all pretty cool too. So let me know what you guys thought of this trailer for the new season of Game of Thrones. Cannot wait for this to start. Now this one up next is pretty interesting. We talked on this podcast the other day about, the Norwegian death metal, the guy with the director with the best Norwegian death metal name anywhere, like Roar Uthog. And I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, but that's the way it looks like it's spelled. Anyway, the director of the upcoming Tomb Raider reboot, which hasn't officially been greenlit. We have no release date. We don't have anything yet, but we do know things are moving over there. Well, now a report in Deadline is saying that Warner Brothers is kind of looking at somebody that they want for the role of Lara. And that somebody is none other than Rey from Star Wars, Daisy Ridley. And I've got to tell you, when I read that, it's one of those times like when they announced J.K. Simmons is going to be Commissioner Gordon. Hadn't thought of that, but a light bulb goes off. You know what I mean? There's that light bulb moment. It's like, that makes total sense. That is a perfect fit. For me, reading that Warner Brothers, and remember, the report also says they haven't actually started talks with her or anything like that. The report just says from Deadline that they are looking at Daisy Ridley. But for me, it was one of those light bulb moments like the J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon. It's like, oh yeah, I had never even considered Daisy Ridley for this role. I had never even considered Daisy Ridley as Lara Croft, but it makes perfect sense. She would be wonderful at it. I think she can embody all the athleticism you need. She's obviously got the right accent. Not that that's important because you can get any actor to do the accent. So granted, she's got a great look. She's beautiful. She shows she's got the acting chops. This is a great show. Look, I'm not saying that, oh my God, now it's got to be Ridley. It's got to be Daisy Ridley playing Lara Croft. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm sure there are a lot of actresses who could do a wonderful job playing Lara Croft. I'm just saying that when I heard that name, it was a light bulb moment for me. So I am officially putting her at the front of my list of people I want to see it. I hadn't considered her before. I hadn't thought about her before. I don't know why I didn't think about her as a potential Lara Croft, because it makes perfect sense. But after reading this report, I got to tell you guys, for me, she's now the head of my list of people who I'd like to see play the role. I think she would be wonderful at it. And I think she could capture, especially if they're talking about wanting to go more into the character of it. And you know my thoughts on that. I talked about it the other day. But if that's what they're going for, then I think a Daisy Ridley is somebody who can bring that for you. So I think that's pretty awesome. All right, let's move on to the next topic here. Speaking of trailers, we've already talked about 2 trailers today. And now we got to talk about a trailer that I've really been looking forward to, that I really unfortunately did not like. I got super excited when I found out The Lonely Island. It of course was, they did all the Saturday Night Live shorts. So they're of course led by Andy Samberg, Akiva Schaffer, and Jorma Taccone, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. The shorts these guys have done and the musical stuff these guys have done on Saturday Night Live over the years is nothing short of iconic. It's so good. Whether it's I Just Had Sex, or whether it's I think they were the masterminds behind Dick in a Box, or I Just Came in My Pants, or whatever. These guys are brilliant and hilarious. And Andy Samberg just did that like tennis fake documentary. I think it was on HBO, which was really super funny. I really enjoyed that. And, you know, they've got a movie coming out that's being produced by Judd Apatow, and it's called Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. So the title is great. Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. It looks on the surface to be a bit of a spoof of, Justin Bieber's Never Back Down documentary. I think this is supposed to be like a faux documentary in the vein of the Justin Bieber Never Back Down. And they mentioned Justin Bieber in the trailer, which is cool. I have been so looking forward to this because I love Lonely Island. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to mention the one they did with Michael. Why am I forgetting Michael's last name? But when they sang the song of Captain Jack Sparrow, that video. If you haven't seen the Lonely Island video for Captain Jack Sparrow, watch it. It's awesome. I think it might be my favorite thing these guys have done. Anyway, so the trailer drops. The poster dropped the other day. It's a fun trailer. You see Andy Samberg. He's obviously the subject of the documentary. He's supposed to be a big pop star in the world, and this is a fake documentary. Like this kind of much like Spinal Tap was. I'm getting the feeling this is much in the vein of Spinal Tap. It's following his character around. Again, great title, Popstar, Never Stop Stopping. And the trailer drops today. I've been so excited about this trailer. Guys, I didn't like the trailer. I didn't like the trailer at all, actually. I wish I did. It had a couple of cute moments, like the one where he's surrounded by yes men and they show him throw up a basketball shot and turn his back to it, and he misses the net by a mile, but still all of his friends go, oh, as if he would hit all mesh. And I think Jared Leto's in that shot too. I'm not really sure. That was cute, but honestly, the trailer for me was a miss. It was a miss. Now, I have not lost faith in the movie. This is still Lonely Island. They're still incredibly funny guys. I got a feeling it's going to be a very R-rated film. And I think a lot of the humor is probably stuff that, even though this was a Red Band trailer that they couldn't show in the Red Band trailer, I'm still holding out hope this is going to be a really good movie. I'm still excited to see the movie. But I'm just going to say, I got to be honest, even though I'm liking the movie and I love Lonely Island, I can't let that cloud what my honest opinion is of the trailer. And my honest opinion of the trailer is that I didn't think it was a very good trailer. So much like the Ghostbusters, I still believe Ghostbusters is going to be a really good movie. I think it's going to be really fun. You got 4 incredibly funny women. You got a great director. You got a great franchise. I believe it's going to be a good movie. But But I had to call it like I saw it. That first Ghostbusters trailer was no good. And like that, I am going to say, I think this Popstar Never Stopping trailer doesn't look any good either, but I still believe the movie's going to be good. So you're going to hear me talk more about this movie moving forward, as I believe it will get better. All right, let's move on to this next thing here. Just short. So we all know that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Zac Efron and Alexander Daddario have the new Baywatch movie coming out. And this, to me, is the perfect cast. Actually, The Rock and Zac Efron have been tweeting out Instagram pictures. Holy crap, have you seen Zac Efron lately? Like, I know I'm a big Zac Efron fan. I think he's a very, very underrated, extremely talented actor, even though he appears in some totally crap movies. I'm looking at you, We Are Your Friends. But I think he is incredibly gifted and talented. I really do. And The Rock has Zac Efron in easily the most insane shape of Zac Efron's life. I mean, he looks like The Rock Jr. It's insane. But anyway, they also just put out another picture of The Rock, put out this picture of him and Alexander Daddario in a very classic Baywatch kind of pose, right? And Alexander Daddario doing what Alexander Daddario does, which is look incredibly hot. It's almost unfair that this girl can be so talented and such a good performer and be this ridiculously hot at the same. Normally, when you see somebody this hot, that's their main attribute, is their hotness, and they don't necessarily bring along an equivalent amount of talent to it. Alexander Daddario is the whole package. I mean, yes, San Andreas was a cheesy goofball fun movie, which I enjoyed, by the way. Yeah, so not exactly high level thespian work in that, but she actually gives legit performance in that movie. Kind of crazy. Like, this girl is super talented. But anyway, now these new pictures come out. And speaking of San Andreas, in that movie, The Rock plays Alexander Daddario's father. I gotta tell you, it's a little creepy for me now to see these pictures and her. No, wait, look, I'm just used now to seeing The Rock as Alexander Daddario's dad, and now seeing them posing together in some hot Baywatch picture feels a little greasy. And I don't know, maybe that's on purpose. They might be using the fact that The Rock and Daddario played father and daughter in one movie kind of as like an inside joke on this, because I'm going to tell you, I just feel a little creepy looking at them posing in some sexy pose together. It seems weird because I think of him as her dad now, but I don't know. It's just a little thing, but it is a little thing nonetheless. All right, let's move on to this thing, and then we'll get into some Twitter questions. There was a report going around the other day that Sylvester Stallone may be appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Now, of course, Sylvester Stallone is on a career high right now. He won a Golden Globe earlier this year. He was just nominated for an Academy Award for a role he's been playing for 40 years, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, playing Rocky. So he's hot right now. And people are loving Sylvester Stallone again, which I'm really happy to see. So there was a report going around that Sylvester Stallone may be appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Now, a lot of people didn't pay a lot of attention to that report because it sounds like a fake report, right? Well, anyway, now there are new reports coming out. This isn't like coming out of Hollywood Reporter or Variety, so I can't verify the validity of these reports. So right now, take this report with a giant grain of salt, all right? But these reports that are going around right now, that a lot of the sites are running with, are saying that he's been spotted on set of Guardians of the Galaxy and this is the quote that I'm reading, okay, in what looks like a Judge Dredd costume. Now, he ain't going to be Judge Dredd in Guardians of the Galaxy, okay? So let's just put that aside. But, the Nova Corps outfits could be confused a little bit with a Judge Dredd outfit. There's some similarities between there, so maybe Stallone is indeed in this movie, and maybe he's like a new general of Nova Corps or something along those lines. Who knows? I just thought it was very interesting. I got to tell you, I brushed off the first report, but I'm starting to think now maybe there's some juice to this story of Stallone being in this movie, and maybe that's kind of a good thing. I'm now kind of totally into the idea of Sylvester Stallone being in the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Depending on what kind of role he plays and all that kind of stuff, obviously. But it's now something I think could actually be pretty cool. All right, guys. One of the things I like to do on this podcast is take some time to take some of your thoughts and your questions. And how do you get a Twitter question to me? Simple. You hop on Twitter, you send out a question to me, and just make sure you include the hashtag TJCP. Hashtag TJCP, the John Campea Podcast. So you send that out, and that way I can get them. And I've got a few questions that have come in here. And the first one comes from the Santes, who writes, what are your thoughts on people going back and saying that the Dark Knight trilogy is bad compared to Snyder's Batman before Batman vs. Superman even comes out? A little bit. Yeah, you've been hearing this lately. Like some people starting to disparage on the masterpiece, the incredible look. I'm not a huge fan of the Dark Knight Rises, the third of the Christopher Nolan trilogy. I'm not a big fan of that movie, but I still liked it. But overall, that trilogy is a masterpiece, especially The Dark Knight. But Batman Begins is wonderful. The Dark Knight, it's a masterpiece. It is, we talked about this a little bit earlier in today's show. It is human nature that people tend to just focus on what's the latest thing and think that whatever the latest thing is the best thing. It's like Batman vs. Superman's coming out. Oh my God, it's going to be better than Christopher Nolan. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And let's not retcon history. Anybody who comes up to me now and says, oh yeah, man, actually the Dark Knight isn't actually all that good. It's like, really? Now, like just because a couple, come on. The Dark Knight is freaking brilliant and you know it. So I kind of shake my head a little bit at that, but I'm not surprised because like I said, it's human nature, man. We all just focus on what's today. Oh, the today thing is the greatest thing ever. And we forget that the yesterday thing was like 10 times better or something like that. Look, I'm not saying that Batman vs. Superman isn't going to be as good as The Dark Knight. I actually think it has a shot at being as good as The Dark Knight, but it doesn't need to be as good as The Dark Knight. Look, maybe no film that has come out since The Godfather has been as good as The Godfather, but does that mean that there have been no truly magnificent, wonderful, awesome films since The Godfather? Of course there have been, tons of them. But we don't wait for a great movie to come out and go, yeah, but was it as good as The Godfather? Because if it's not, then it's kind of a disappointment. No, that would be a stupid way of thinking. And so what I don't want to have happen is I don't want DC fans or comic book movie fans in general to go into Batman vs. Superman thinking it's got to be as good as The Dark Knight or it's a disappointment. That would be a totally stupid way of looking at it. Because even if Batman vs. Superman is just 75% as good as The Dark Knight, that's an awesome movie. That's an awesome movie. And I hope that people can get out of their own heads and just appreciate the movie for what it is. Whatever it ends up being. Just appreciate it for what it is, not what it is compared to something else. Just take the movie, judge it on its own merits, whether that's good or bad, and appreciate it for what it is as opposed to what you're trying to compare it to. And maybe if we evaluate it on its own merits, we look at it and say, this movie's kind of bad. Hey, maybe that might happen. Sure, that's a possibility. Yes. But if you go into it and it's like an 8 out of 10 movie, celebrate it. Be happy, be thrilled. I'm going to be losing my mind. If this movie ends up, look, it's Batman vs. Superman. This movie ends up being an 8 out of 10. I'm freaking losing my mind. I'm going to be so happy. But there are going to be some people out there, I just know it, that'll go, yeah, but it wasn't as good as The Dark Knight. It's like, oh, you idiot. Is that really your standard? Is that if it's not as good as The Dark Knight, then it's not any good? Well, okay, fine then. In that case, Deadpool wasn't any good. And in that case, X-Men Days of Future Past wasn't any good. And in that case, it's just a stupid way of looking at it. Just go in and evaluate Batman v Superman in its own merits. I think you have a much better chance of having a good time if you do that. Just my thoughts. All right, let's go on to the next Twitter question. Ease812 writes, hey, John, what is it you look for when you watch a trailer to determine whether it's good or bad? Well, here's the thing about trailers. I always say that movies, the most beautiful thing about the movies is the pure subjectivity of them. Movies are totally subjective. So you can have 10 people standing around a piece of art and 10 people can be looking at the same thing and yet have 10 different experiences. They can be seeing different aspects of it than the person next to them, because we all come to a piece of art with our own unique backgrounds and predispositions and things like that. And that's that's not a weakness of movies. That is a strength of movies that is so purely subjective. So when you hear me say that trailer is bad, what that is really saying is me saying, to me, that trailer is bad. To somebody else, look, that Popstar Never Stopping, or whatever it's called, somebody else may look at that trailer and it might hit them the right way. Maybe there's somebody else who saw that trailer and it made them laugh hysterically the whole way through. To them, it's a good trailer, and that's great. I celebrate that. That's awesome. To me, it's a bad trailer. So the question I'm going to take you saying is, what is it to me that determines whether or not for me a trailer is good or bad? It's the same actually criteria that I kind of peg to a movie itself. What was my experience with the trailer? Now, on top of that, did it make me want to see the movie? Now that sounds like a very basic question, but fundamentally, seriously, I think a lot of people don't ask themselves that question. Did watching this trailer increase my desire to see that movie? Because I think ultimately for a lot of people, what it comes down to is whether they know it or not. That's the question their brain is asking, even if they don't know it. So I just watched a trailer for Popstar, right? And after watching the trailer, my anticipation level for seeing that movie did not go up. It actually might have gone down just a hair. And so what that translates for me is bad trailer. When I saw the first Ghostbusters trailer, it did not make me more excited to see the movie. When I saw the Captain America Civil War trailer that dropped today, my already high level of excitement for seeing Captain America Civil War actually went up. And therefore, to me, the trailer did a great job. It did what it was supposed to do. So at the end of the day, trailers are still a piece of art. They will hit us subjectively. Look, I had Erin Sharoni on the show with me on Monday, and she'll be back. But I had Erin Sharoni on the show with me on Monday. And, I called Deadpool the greatest marketing campaign ever. To her, the marketing didn't do all that much for her. Am I right? Is she wrong? Not really. If the marketing didn't work for her, it didn't work for her. There's no right or wrong in that. So trailers are much like movies, man. It'll hit us all in different ways. All right. Three more questions. This one comes from Hunter Goodwin, or Hunter G Win 91, who writes, hey, John, they can't make Chewbacca too young in the Han Solo origin movie. Remember Chewie's cameo in Revenge of the Sith? Yeah, like the other day I was mentioning, because the news came out, Disney and Lucasfilm had announced that the coming Han Solo movie is really going to be an origin story of Han and Chewie. It's not just Han Solo, it's Han and Chewie. And one of the things I said in my commentary about it was that I kind of hope that they make Chewie look a little bit younger, because they're messing it up a little bit, because Chewbacca actually looked younger in The Force Awakens than he did in Star Wars. And I understand Wookiees have a longer lifespan than humans, but still, that's a 50, 60-year gap. You'd think there would be a little bit of age difference. And I said, I hope they make him look a little bit younger in the Han Solo Chewbacca movie. Well, Hunter raises a great question. They can't young him up too much, because you go back even more years, another 15 years before that, we've already seen Chewbacca in Revenge of the Sith in a pointless cameo filled with, amongst many other pointless things in the stupid Star Wars prequels. Anyway, Chewie pops up there and he doesn't look much younger. So very good point, Hunter. You can't youngify Chewbacca too much without retconning it. Very good point. Thank you for that, for bringing that point up. All right. The next question comes from phantomrangerpr. I wonder if this person is biased for the Power Rangers. And phantomrangerpr says, hey, John, you say that the Power Rangers reboot is going to flop because Turbo, the last Power Rangers movie that came out, Turbo, flopped 20 years ago. Well, the cartoon movie for Transformers flopped, and now Transformers makes a lot of money. True, but let me correct you on a couple things. Number one, I never said Power Rangers was going to flop. I said I think it's a bad idea because you put out a live action movie and nobody cared about it. It lost because you put out one and it made some money, and then you put out another one and nobody had any interest in it. And it lost tons of money. But I've always said there are ways to do this that it can work. I just think it's a poor gamble. So I have not said that it's going to flop. I think there's a high chance it's going to flop, but do not discount that there are things they could do with this property. There are some very interesting things you could do with the Power Rangers property. I've said this from day one. There are some very cool things you could do. Now, whether they're going to do it, I don't know, but there's some cool things you could do with Power Rangers that could make it more relevant today. So I am by no means definitively, let me go on record right now. I am no means definitively saying Power Rangers is going to flop. Okay. I'm not saying that. Do I think there's a good chance it'll flop? Yeah, I do. But let's wait and see. You never know. You absolutely never know. Now, you bring up the fact that, you're trying to compare it to Transformers. The problem is, you mentioned it yourself in the tweet. That's apples and oranges comparison, man, because one was just an extension of the animated cartoon show. That was just a cartoon that had very little, if anything at all, to do or any connection at all with the live action movies we have today. That Power Rangers movie, Turbo, was a live action film and was probably more reflective of what the new Power Rangers would be than that Transformers animated movie from 20 years ago, which was first of all, that movie was set way in the future. It was with an entirely new set of Autobots and Decepticons. It was completely different, and it was a totally different medium. It was animation. Totally different worlds. Now, once again, though, that's not to say, your premise in your tweet to me is that just because Turbo flopped 20 years ago, the Power Rangers movie Turbo, just because that movie flopped does not automatically mean that it's going to flop today. If that is the premise of your tweet, then I agree with you. Just because it flopped 20 years ago does not necessarily automatically mean it will flop today. Not at all. But it is an indicator. Just one indicator. There can be 20 or 30 different indicators. But while I think it would be foolish to say that just because Turbo flopped 20 years ago, that automatically means it would flop today, it would be even more foolish to think that it's totally irrelevant information. It's not totally irrelevant information. It is very relevant information. All right? That doesn't mean that's the way it's going to turn out. But let's not act like, this means nothing. No. It does mean something. It absolutely means something. But it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to flop either. On that, you and I agree. All right, let's go on the last question of the day. And this last question today comes from Andy Gates 23. And Andy Gates 23 writes, "My life is pretty much movies, sports, and poker. So you can see why I love your shows. My question is, where do you usually play poker?" Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I am an avid poker player. I actually learned how to play poker when I moved to LA, and I just got hooked on poker. The funny thing is, I'm not a gambler. Like, I don't go to the horse races. When I go to Vegas, I don't play roulette or don't play blackjack. I don't go and gamble, but I love playing poker. Me and my friends, we haven't had one in a while, but we're planning our next poker night here soon. I play in the World Series of Poker each year. And I go to Vegas. Me and Ann love going to Vegas, and we go to Vegas probably 5 times a year. 4 to 5 times a year we go to Vegas. And whenever I do, I always play me some poker. Usually I'll sit down at a poker table for like 12 hours and play poker, like a stretch of poker, like 12 hours straight. Because I love the game of poker. I have a lot of fun at it. And it's fun that I've made some money playing it too, but it's just really, really fun. My favorite place to play poker in Las Vegas is actually a very awkward poker room, but it's the Planet Hollywood poker room. I love the Planet Hollywood poker room. It's got a great energy to it. It's got a great vibe to it. The poker room in Caesar's Palace feels like a temple to poker. It's great. Playing at Bellagio feels very cool because a lot of the legends of poker playing play at Bellagio. That's really cool. There are a lot of pretty decent poker rooms in Vegas, but I got to say my favorite place to play poker in Vegas is Planet Hollywood. In Los Angeles, my favorite place to play poker, although it is by no means the best casino in Los Angeles, but my favorite place to play poker in Los Angeles is probably the bicycle casino. A lot of people go and play at Commerce. Commerce just feels really sketchy to me. I don't know why, but I like playing at the bike casino. That's pretty cool. I like playing tournaments at the Hustler Casino, actually. The Hustler has a really good tournament structure for poker, so I like going over there and playing there a lot. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, don't forget, make sure you follow me on social media. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere at John Campea. That's how you find me there. And please do me a favor, if you appreciate this podcast and if you like this podcast and I'm able to spend a part of your day with you, whether you're commuting to work or jogging or whatever, can you do me a favor? Jump onto iTunes, subscribe to it on iTunes, and subscribe to it on any podcast service you like. But make sure you subscribe to it on iTunes and rate this podcast on iTunes and leave a comment on iTunes. That would help me a great deal. And don't forget, once again, my book, The Pride, is available now on Amazon. Head on over to Amazon, just search for The Pride, and you should be able to find my book. Thank you so much to all of you guys who've bought it already. I'm just really super excited. So glad so many of you guys are reading and liking it. I really appreciate that. So that'll do it for me, guys. I will be back tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have another podcast up tomorrow, so make sure you join me then. So for the John Campea Podcast, thanks so much, guys, and until next time, bye-bye.